because in doing that, you're speaking favorably about the character of Shukri, and you're also encouraging the warden to rethink what he's doing. I mean, Shukri's been there a long time. He's been a model inmate, so it's pretty hard to continue making the case that he ought to be where he is. And if he was not a Palestinian who is involved, was accused of being involved in an international matter, he was not involved in anything but helping people, but that's what he's accused of. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't be in the maximum security part of Beaumont. So, I think prominent people contacting the warden is probably the best thing.
Prominent people contacting the warden.
But I think a prominent person can be any of us, by the way.
I wanna-
Bring that word down to all of us.
Well, I agree with that. I was just thinking of folks that already turned his head. You know, he's used to getting letters, but I certainly agree with that.
Marwa?
I was curious what we know about the warden, and because if I was a warden, I was sadistic, and I have a model prisoner, I wouldn't want to let him go. It's nice for me. Like, what's my incentive to move him to a different prison?
Do we know that? Is he sadistic? I mean,
You don't even have to be sadistic. You just want to keep your job. You're a government employee. Like, what's your incentive to move someone? I don't know the guy. I don't know anything about the details. I'm just curious.
I think if we create enough of a record in advance showing that there was a legitimate reason to move him and that not moving him could have a serious consequence like his death, I would say that's enough of a threat of potential liability in the future that they, if you have the discretion to do it, why not just do it? Unless you're going out of your way to try to exact revenge on him, which, from what I understand about the situation, that's not the case. That he has actually pretty civil relations with the warden, in part because he's such a model inmate. So, I'm not sure what the holdup is over there in terms of transferring him. I'm not losing out hope on the possibility that he may just do it. So.
Hadi, is Gupta on the phone? Is he on the call?
Yes, that was him.
Okay.
Marwa, did you want to respond to that?
I don't know. So I was thinking these are all excellent ideas. What I would recommend is that we just put small goals so that people can see that we're achieving things. Like, okay, we have this very specific goal. We want to get a response from the warden. It doesn't even have to be a response in our favor. It's just we want him to be forced to say something, and then slowly move it up, because I think what the problem is when you have something that is so large is that people just, like what Nidat was mentioning earlier, is they just, people lose their interest and it falls to the wayside. So if we can show them that we have this goal, and then with your pressure we met it, with this goal, with your pressure we met it, and then we slowly build up, is what I would recommend.
I did just a practical thing.
David, yeah, speak up.
Louder.
I would just like to have us come up with some talking points that we can all agree on, that we can use if we do write letters. And, the address of the warden, and if any background we've got, specific things, here's what you ought to include in your letter. I think that would be very helpful.
That would be simple enough. I can ask Councilor Gupta to email me. He's got my email address, some talking points and the address and so forth, right? That'll be easy.
It's my understanding that the Federal Bureau of Prisons South Central office in Grand Prairie handles designations. I wonder if that would be an interesting angle to try to escalate all of this in that direction as well. Also, the PR, a formidable PR would be the perfect thing to get prominent individuals to advocate on his behalf as well. Okay.
All right, thank you. I want to move on from here.
Arshia with the executive director of Muslim Women Center for Right.
What is the name?
Arshia Khan, she's
Arshia Khan.
executive director of MLFA.
Well, hi, Ms. Khan. You want to introduce yourself?
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Arshia Ali Khan. I I'm the CEO of the Muslim Legal Fund of America. My apologies for being late. I didn't get the meeting, but I'm grateful that I was able to catch you, and I look forward to hearing about what we are talking about and how we can support you as an organization individually as well.
Well, thank you for joining, and I want to take a minute to thank MLFA for their past commitment and support, and the prodigious amount of work that MLFA did in the last time we tried for a presidential pardon. So thank you for all that, and thank you for being willing to join with us again as we try a second time. I would like to go back to Congressman John Bryant and have him, if he would, give us a brief synopsis of the effort that was put into this effort at the end of the Obama presidency. There was a huge amount of work that was done. We got very close. There's a lot to learn from that. There were some successes. There was a lot of disappointments, obviously. A lot of folks who had told us they would help us did not come through. I'm going to give it to Congressman Bryant so he can give us a brief rundown.
Well, in 2000, I should say the year before 2016, we designed a strategy to try to obtain a commutation of the sentences of the Holy Land Five from President Obama in the last year of his presidency. And it included involving help from foreign leaders, including the President of Turkey, the Emir of Qatar, and prominent leaders in the Islamic community all over the United States, particularly the Palestinian population in the United States, members of Congress. We had great support from Congressman Lady Bernice Johnson, who intervened for us, who wrote a letter to the president for us. Everything we asked her to do, she did. She was really a great stand-up leader. We got no other help from anyone in Congress, in spite of early indications that we would. From Keith Ellison, who was a congressman then, he's now Attorney General of Minnesota. He backed away, did not help us. Andre Carson did not help us. We thought that he would. He's a Muslim American member from, I think, Michigan. Excuse me. Minnesota. Excuse me. Yeah. The Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib, and the other woman, Mrs. Omar, were not in Congress at the time, so we didn't have any access to them.
Hey, if folks online could mute themselves while the folks in person are talking, because we can't hear them. So, sorry.
Good. We did obtain very significant help from President Erdogan in Turkey. He did exactly what we asked. We flew there. We spent a week there. Waited. We met with his top assistant, who had just left Georgetown, where he was head of the Muslim Center there at Georgetown University, and returned to Turkey in order to assist President Erdogan. And they were really great, a great help to us. We did not get the help we had hoped to get from the Emir of Qatar. We met with the Foreign Secretary of the government and others. But the call from Erdogan caused us to have a great deal of help. The great disappointment was that we did not get significant help from the Islamic community. The Muslim Legal Fund underwrote all of this, spent an enormous amount of money. For example, the then executive director and I and Charlie Swift, the lawyer for the sister organization of the Muslim Legal Fund, spent more than 2 weeks in Turkey and in Qatar.
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie Swift, yeah. And we did the best we could do at great expense to the legal fund. But they were stalwarts all the way through this and kept it going. And I, in the last month before Obama went out of office, stayed in a hotel in Washington the entire time, trying to make something happened at the last minute, get another congressman to call or something, but in my judgment at the time, there were an adequate number of prominent Islamic leaders, including in the Washington area, that had a personal relationship with President Obama that could have made a difference and did not. That was a great disappointment to us. And it wasn't only in the Washington area, it was in a lot of other areas as well. People did not seem to want to spend their brownie points, so to speak, with the president on this issue, or they were afraid to be identified with it for fear of becoming controversial. We thought that the imam for the great big mosque there in Northern Virginia, I've forgotten the name of it now, it's been 6 years now.
He died.
Yeah.
He passed away.
He did, the big guy, yeah, I didn't know that. Well, he had a direct relationship with Obama, and we thought.
That's Adam Center, no, he's still around.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But he didn't come through for us, and that was
Yeah.
really the missing part of our campaign. I mean, we had a president of a country where the U.S. has a military base call and say, look, all you've got to do is commute their citizens. I'll grant them Turkish citizenship. They can fly here and stay here. We'll make it easy for you. But we got no action out of that.
You know, the co-conspirator list that they published, you know, and that's what played a big role in scaring the member of the community to
That's
come
right.
forward.
That's right.
And care. All of those people that they could help, but they were afraid of that list that we published, and they were on the list that they are co-conspirators.
Yeah, that's correct. That caused a lot of people to be afraid. I will say though, CARE was great. They helped all they could. I have only thank you for them and the top guy there in Nawad.
Yeah,
They're-
how the wide, yes.
Yeah, he was helpful. Anytime I needed to talk to him, I got right in to see him, and he was as helpful as he could be.
All right, so there's at least two national Muslim organizations, MLFA and CARE, that came through for us. And God willing, we're going to be going back to them, relying upon them to help us as we move forward. I would like, with your permission, I got this letter from Shukri right after I met him back in January. He has sort of given us a roadmap of what he would like to see happen in the next 2 years until the end of the Obama presidency. Biden, excuse me, Biden administration. So I would like the folks that are online to please butt in, jump in anytime you hear something, and Nida also elaborate on anything that your dad has put down on paper. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but some highlights, okay? So he says, to reiterate some of the issues we discussed, I believe this is what we need to do at this time. Number one, change the narrative about our case and who we really are. The terrorism stigma stands between us and coming home. That needs to be changed. This is how we change it. A, focus on the real work we have done in the HLF, the life-saving relief efforts, the humanitarian aid, the medical, educational, economic programs among the Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan, as well as the needy worldwide, like the Kosovo refugees, Bosnia, and Chechnya. A lot of people don't know that this was an international relief organization that was doing phenomenal humanitarian work in other parts of the world. Normalize all public reference to the HLF, us the incarcerated HLF men, as humanitarian pioneers, lifesavers, progressive thinkers, community leaders, sons, husbands, fathers, grandfathers, artists, poets, peacemakers, intellectuals. So the stigma on them is terrorist, right? And he's offering some alternatives to what we can say who these men really are. Initiate public acknowledgement and recognition of the work the HLF men have done in the past by holding conference on and around November 24, 2023, which will mark the 15th year of our incarceration. That is an action item that we can agree to do today, that come November, we'll start planning some of these stuff. Present awards and tokens of appreciation. The more at ease people can speak about the incarcerated HLF men, the less a taboo it becomes. The terrorist stigma must go away and be replaced by humanitarian. Now, I would like Nidra to tell us, there was a church up in Massachusetts or Boston or somewhere that gave these men an award like a few months ago. Can you tell us?
I was invited to Boston a couple months ago by the Community Church of Boston, and they presented the Sacco and Vanzetti Award for social justice. And they gave an award to each one of the HLF5, including also Sami Nadian, who was also a political prisoner. I think that was a very wonderful and beautiful thing. I got to, speak also about my experience. And they were just such a wonderful and very supportive community out in Boston. We do need more events like that, honestly, because, by the way, it was a church, they weren't even Muslim, and I see more support from non-Muslims, because unfortunately, Muslims are afraid. I was invited to speak by, I shouldn't call out people, but I will, by AMP, American Muslims for Palestine. I was invited to speak, and then uninvited 3 weeks later, because they are going through a lawsuit and they were afraid that by me going and speaking, it would kind of tie them into the HLF and stuff like that. I still showed up anyway. I told them, you invited me, I made plans, I'm gonna show up. I didn't speak, but my face was there. We need to, again, normalize and talk about how, the human side of it, that these men were humanitarians, they are fathers, poets, artists. We do need to take out the whole terrorism initiative. What do you call it? Sorry, my brain's like just everywhere right now. Narrative, yes. We do need to take that out, because we need people to just not be afraid anymore. And we can't talk about, like, all these Muslims are talking about the freedom of Palestine, but you can't talk about the freedom of Palestine without talking about the freedom of the political prisoners and the political prisoners here in America. It starts with that, honestly, because they are our freedom fighters. So.
Can I add on this point, as far as like community groups not being supportive? I mean, when we at CCF, when we started putting out our campaign essentially we got a very powerful letter put out, basically noting that given how much outrage there was, at least in some quarters, about Israel condemning those six or seven human rights groups in the West Bank as terrorists, we said, given that widespread recognition, there's no reason that the same recognition shouldn't apply to the Holy Land Five. And we actually got quite a few mainstream organizations, including some of the ones that we mentioned, CARE and Human Rights Watch, to sign on. And Human Rights Watch even posted it on their website. So, I don't, as far as these other Muslim groups going, I think that's quite embarrassing for American Muslims for Palestine, for them to uninvite you over what I think any lawyer would tell them is a frivolous lawsuit. But, as far as these other organizations, several of them aren't concerned, and some of them are quite influential. We had the National Lawyers Guild sign on. We had the Arab Resource and Organizing Center in San Francisco, which is a pretty well-established, well-resourced organization run by Alar Kiswani. We had quite a few other. There's a lot on here. Most of them are quite small, but some of them are pretty big. So I'm in terms of dealing with these problems, I'm wondering if maybe going through this list and using these organizations as kind of a base to approach the more hesitant organizations and say, look, we got CARE, we got Human Rights Watch. If you can't be on the same list as them, I don't know what you're doing. They might be they might be more less reticent rather than to support some of these demands. I can actually email out the letter and the signatories to the group if that would be helpful.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, this is Mustafa. I wanted to add to this. Even adding that CARE is a big supporter. We have a significant number of our community, of the Muslim community, who are scared to be associated with CARE because of the stigmas that people have put out. I think we need to send a lot of ships out to sea. I like the idea that the brother just shared about all the groups, but there's a lot in the ecumenical community that we need to embrace or to get out and start the education. One of the things that stood out the most in the trial was the fact that they were prosecuting these brothers, but USAID, the Red Cross, the European, everybody else was given to the same exact charities. So if there's a way that we can include some of that information, I think that would help. But we're gonna have to reach out to the non-Muslim community, unfortunately, and the Muslim. I'm not saying we shouldn't reach out to them, but we gotta build a base where they feel comfortable. Like if you get First Baptist Church of Houston or somewhere in there, everybody will be okay with it. But they're really timid, and it's really embarrassing and it's hurtful because these brothers are in prison for nothing. They're just languishing in there. So I hope that's my little 2 cents.
Thank you, Mustafa. I'm gonna give you my bias here. I think Muslim organizations should be ashamed if they're not supporting this effort. I mean, we can't ask Baptist churches and Presbyterians and whoever out there to do this unless we don't support these guys. So I'm gonna put it out. Is there a chance we can get CARE or MLFA to announce to commemorate these guys and celebrate their contributions? I mean, this is the process of humanizing these men. Erase that terrorist stigma that's on them and replace that with humanitarian.
I mean, my thing is, I love MLFA, but like, they always make events, right? They always make fundraisers and they always bring these big speakers. Why don't they ever bring anyone from the HLF to speak? Why don't they like do something to commemorate, like the whole the anniversary of the sentencing is coming up in May, and it's also the same weekend as the anniversary of the Nakba in Palestine. Why isn't there something going on, like why isn't there an event around that, or an event around the anniversary of what's it called? Sorry. Their imprisonment.
Yeah.
They make these events all the time. Why don't they ever bring one of us to speak?
I'm gonna make a decision right now that we will have a commemoration on November 24th, the date that we will do something. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're okay.
Yes.
We will organize that, I'm telling you, we'll just do it.
So maybe Shukri had
This
more
is
to
Arshia, if I may speak.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I did want to, what we are doing at MLFA, I mean, I'm new to the organization 4.5 years in, and so Holy Land has been something that I learned about the day I walked through the doors. We had their pictures on our walls, and it's not something we forgot. And I have, what we have done this past year, last year actually, we have invested in producing a documentary to tell the story from the other side. We're relaunching our new website, and we intend to dedicate an entire page to their story. I would love for you to come and speak and, even own that page. We'd like to create a timeline of events. We are also looking at actually attaching our website to the actual case files and really bringing that to light. We are invested, we are interested. When Brother Abdurrahman was released, he contacted me directly. I tried to hire him so that he could start representing and speaking on behalf of the Holy Land Brothers, but then because of some probational issues, he wasn't allowed to work with us, and we haven't lost contact. He texts me all the time. So we are here, we are interested, we are committed, and we are going to support the organization and all the effort. So I would love to meet with you, Nida. I don't think we've officially, I think I've seen you in different spaces, but we haven't actually connected. Part of that was because we were reconstructing and indicting MLFA and the work that we're doing. So I give you our commitment. You have Brother Muafa sitting beside you. He is part of our board and founding of MLFA, and that's why we're here. So I will say that, and then I would love to connect with you, off camera, and we can kind of figure out a real plan on how to really bring this story to light and what we can do to support the family and the movement actually that we need to create.
Thank you so much. I want to applaud that. Can you all join me? We have a commitment from MLFA.
Sorry, I just sounded frustrated because I just want to see more action. Like, it feels like the family has been doing this for the longest time alone. Like I told you guys, I was carrying.
You're not alone.
I know we're not alone, but it just felt like that.
From day one and before. I've known Shukri for 30 years, 35 years, and I've been with them for many years. I'm a board member of MLFA, and we spent. In fact, we just commit. About 5 months ago, $50,000 to make a documentary about their life, about what they've done, and then it's in progress right now. And
Thank you.
Filming and interviewing. I think she talked to you. So it's probably it looked like here is that we're lacking of connecting, not the effort. The effort is there, but like you mentioned, a few things that we don't know, we didn't hear about it. I mean, maybe our fault, maybe we don't have this connection to you. You need to be coming and be participating in what we do and tell us what's happening and connect the human side, the family side into the activism, just like you are here and connecting your family to us. And the same thing you have to do with the organization. And we're blaming the Muslim organization not standing up to those people. You have to understand that our friends lost their citizenship because they spoke about Palestine, they spoke about things, they deported them, they lost all their money, they have huge businesses here, and they deported them. And some people are hunted until now, and they're moving from one place. And then the community hear about that, and he said, what good is that if I step up and do something, and all of a sudden I'm gone? Now, like at least right now, I could do in a quiet way, contributing money, talking here and talking here, gathering, an effort to support this thing rather than just go out and speak publicly. And the thing, it's just just like they're afraid even to make khutbah at the mosque. And this is to the extent, because we came in from a police community, from a police country. We're not free. We don't have that sense of speaking your mind and you don't care. No, we are oppressed from the time that we are born. For 50 years, 100 years, we are oppressed, and we come in here just because we are here and we see the government acts just as oppressive as our old government and back home. So it is no different. Somebody is a citizen for 25 years, and they keep digging in, and they find some fault in his application, and boom, he's gone.
Yeah. Thank you. That's point well taken. Nida, did you want to go, and then Congressman, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I think sure, efforts by the MLFA, by CARE are important, but especially from like a political organizing standpoint, and I know my friends with the PYM and within our lifetime can attest to this. I don't think people really view the MLFA and CARE as community organizations, as grassroots community organizations. And that's where I think like our friends here with the PYM, our friends with SJPs, and within our lifetime can really step in and mobilize like actual consciousness within the Muslim community. So we're talking about lack of Muslim community support, but that's really on an organizational level. And we're talking about organizations that some may have like actual like leverage and some really are just a name, right? but we want to reach the people, right? If we have folks who are really like aware of what's happening and they care and they want to like mobilize and organize for this, then I think that's, in my opinion, what makes a successful PR campaign, for example, right? So I think like we've had a very like fruitful conversation here. We can start identifying next steps and pulling on like other organizations, not just the MLFA, not just CARE, I'm talking grassroots organizations, right? To really like maybe form a committee for PR or, you know, talking about like having events. For example, PYM has chapters all across the nation, right? What if every single chapter, you know, like dedicated like certain actions for the HLF, which we've seen before and we can do again, we can do it on an even larger scale, right? So I don't want us to like downplay the importance of grassroots work, right? Like having organizations that may have name recognition like CARE, that could be beneficial as well, but changing the narrative really starts in our communities, and it starts with people who do community work. So like our friends here with the PYM, we've been on lifetime with the SJPs. I think like an action item for us can be to like talk out what is our next steps in terms of actually creating this PR campaign.
That's what I was going with by hiring MLFA, hiring Audrey to come and speak from a personal point of view and connection with the family and the thing. But they prevent them from working with us. I mean, we try to think that the MLFA is not a grassroots organization. MLFA has a specific goal and mission. So we deal with the law, with the government and things, but the connection is just the support. We just go with it, but like CARE is more than I think PMI. And all of those people are more connected than MLFA. So, you know, we're doing what we can, but we need to do maybe more.
I can jump into that as well. I mean, I would love the opportunity to have those collaborations. I think there is a position and a place where we can come together and, as you said, you know, host events or days or even talks. MLFA does go into the community. We've rebuilt that and we're going out. So again, I am here and I would love to connect with you guys on a one-on-one and figure out what we can do, look at what low-hanging fruits could look like. You know, there's a lot of collaborations that we could potentially become a part of, and start really changing the narrative. And that is the goal that, you know, I personally have had, and, you know, Brother Mwafa has watched us. We are taking presence back. Up until the past 5 years that I've seen it, there was a lot of fear, and that's really how everybody was operating. We were selling fear, we were buying fear, but what I'm hearing in today's conversation is what we've been trying to echo, that we belong and we need to own that position, and we need to start actually moving forward as empowered members of the community, not afraid. I know mosques that have said, Arshia, if you bring the Holy Land, we'll support you. So there's a lot of disconnect. I've also had a lot of donors say, why do you only work for Holy Land? I've gone through a lot of iterations, and I couldn't really make any moves with anyone until we actually understood the different points of view. And now that we have a general census, I mean, I'm absolutely open to mobilizing or partnering or collaborating with any area. I mean, as I said, their pictures were on our walls. Like, that's how intimate this story is to ours. We always say that we started because of the Holy Land 5. So I'm glad that we are present, our past was felt, but I absolutely want you to feel our presence as well and where we'd like to take this. And I think it is the next generation. I think it is movements. I think it is grassroots that we can mobilize if we kind of get our work together. What are we trying to do and how are we trying to do it?
Can I add to that? I think that was really great what Sister Arshia said. I wanted to mention that, like, I think, especially with some of the folks that are on this call that I've known for many years, and probably many of you in your own experiences, with all experiences with Palestine, or anything that touches Palestine, there's a bunch of official organizations that say we're in charge, and then they don't do anything, or when we try to push something, they push back internally, and then it looks publicly like everyone's concerned, but privately things aren't happening. And I mean, I've always advocated for making trouble when it comes to those kinds of things. I don't think it makes sense for an organization to take up the Palestinian cause or to claim to represent the Muslim community and things like that, and then not do the basic stuff. You know, I don't see other communities and other political causes doing it. I mean, maybe I'm not looking closely enough, but I mean, I think we have a solid number of people at both kind of the higher level in bigger organizations as well as smaller grassroots organizations that have been pushing for more acknowledgement and support for this particular aspect of the struggle as far as HLF5, that we should start being more public when we're thwarted, that when organizations decide not to host us or decide not to dedicate time or resources, we should maybe start asking a little bit publicly why that's happening. Because I think that's a necessary conversation, and it sounds like it's a conversation that's happening anyway. You know, I know that the folks from Mondowise, for example, reached out to me when we did the CCF PYM panel on and when Shukri actually called in, and I know that they were interested in covering it more. I know that there's other like one of the student activists just said, I'm sorry I didn't see your name, but that there's interest at the local and grassroots levels. So I don't know why we're not being more aggressive, not only about the underlying issue, but also about the fact that, yeah, I mean, it is kind of an embarrassment for some of these organizations not to take it up. And we should be being loud about that. I know some folks don't want making trouble, but I feel like if you're not going to make trouble.
All right. Congressman John Bryant.
Well, I have some observations, but maybe we ought to hear from Shukri before we all.
We were expecting to hear from him, call in.
No, I'm talking about your letter there.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, I've got some really good stuff.
Can I wanna,
I'll get back into it.
I wanna elaborate on the first point that Shukri mentioned in his letter. When Brother Muwaffaq and I visited with him, he was absolutely focused on changing the narrative. He is in the process of writing his own memoirs. This is what you and I can do right now, is to be part of this effort. Muwaffaq and I spoke to him for about 3 hours. And there are 2 points: publishing and printing his memoirs. That takes money. That requires financial support. The guy cannot raise money from inside the cell. You can contact me or Nida directly if you are interested, and all of you should be, and you should actually advocate on behalf of Shukri to publish his memoir, because that's going to change that narrative. He is, for the ones who don't know him personally, he is a fantastic writer, an artist, an eloquent speaker, and the world needs to know that about Shukri Abu Bakr, not the terrorist that he was convicted of being. So what we need to do is come to his aid and participate in this effort of publishing and printing his memoirs. That's what we can do, practical.
Take a photo of this. This is how you can send money to Shukri into his account. Take a photo before you all go. I'm gonna leave it.
Because when he gets on the internet, when he writes emails, when he calls me or calls Muwaffaq or calls his lawyer, that costs money. And I know Jesse is aware of what he's doing. So we need to help him to publish this stuff.
Thank you, Imran. I'm gonna get back into Shukri's letter. Present awards and tokens of appreciation. The more, I'm just going back, the more at ease people can speak about the incarcerated HLF men, the less a taboo it becomes. The terrorist stigma must go away and be placed by humanitarian. D, articles, media interviews, press releases can help in this regard. Hold an exhibition of the works of arts Ghassan and I have done from behind bars. Read our poetry, publicize my blog, notes from Shukri.wordpress.com. Notes from Shukri.wordpress.com. Invite invite members of our families into community activities, mosques, picnics, and have them talk about our issues. G, as to the case against us, minimize the toxicity of government allegations by stating the facts in the case that the government did not want to come out. Here are some examples. I'm gonna read this to you. You all know this stuff. It is WordPress, no from Shukri, WordPress. He says, none of the defendants committed any act of terrorism or violence. None of the charity committees the HLF funded in Palestine was at any time listed as a terrorist organization, banned by any government, shut down, under investigation, or indicted on any financial fraud or misconduct. The prosecutor stated that the case was important for our, quote, our ally, the state of Israel. Y'all know all these details, so I'm gonna skip that. This is something important he says. He says, one argument I want to throw here is that what crime we are accused of committing back in the 90s seems to be irrelevant to the pressing priorities the US is facing today, especially in light of the events of January 6th. The crime, quote, furthermore, is non-consequential. There are no victims to name, no continuing damage, no ongoing ramifications. Hamas did not rise to power because of HLF's work in Palestine. HLF was shut down on December 4, 2001, and Hamas rose to power in 2006. In the aftermath of the Israeli assault on Gaza in May 2021. President Biden promised just recently to help rebuild Gaza and urged the international community to support the effort. It is perplexing to hear such humanitarian gestures going to a territory that is fully in control of Hamas without hesitation, while I am serving an equivalent of a life sentence for funding a small organization upon which the control of Hamas was not even established in court. So here's Biden wants to help rebuild all of Gaza, and Shukri is saying, I supported a small group in Gaza, and I'm serving a life sentence for that. And Biden wants to serve all of Gaza. I think he's seeing the discontinuity in that logic. It is contradictory. Okay, I'm going to pick some more good points. Take advantage of the political realities. He's very astute. He knows what's going on. Israel is now governed by the most radical parties of the right, making it the most radical government in Israel history. Consequently, two major rifts will start to form. One with the US administration, which will find it objectionable to allow Israel to escalate hostilities against the Palestinians in the occupied territories, including building more massive settlements, annexation, and mass incarceration. Furthermore, Israel might drag the US into a premature military confrontation with Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu is a divisive figure, and under the pressure of the ultra-right religious parties, his politics will steer even more erratically, contrary to the US stated policies in the Middle East. A conflict is inevitable between the US administrations and the Israeli government, which he wrote this 3 months ago, so he is pretty visionary with that. On the other hand, American Jewish communities, especially among Reform Jews, will find themselves in a predicament to choose between unconditional support for Israel and the American ideals. Most, especially amongst the younger generation, the educated and progressives, will distance themselves from Israeli racist, ultra-religious apartheid policies and practices against the Palestinians. Having said that, I see a major opening. Jewish groups such as Jews for Peace and other advocacy groups, they may endorse a clemency appeal, provided that our approach is two-pronged. Minimize the government charges against the defendants and maximize the human and humanitarian dimension. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, of course, I agree with all of it. I was going to say, it seems to me that we had the right design 6 years ago for this campaign. what we lacked was, what we overestimated was the willingness of people in the Muslim community to come out and help us. The willingness of other international leaders other than President Erdogan to help us. And the willingness of members of Congress and people in government to step forward. I believe all that has changed. 6 years have passed. I think there is more support in Congress, a willingness to stand up and speak to the president about it, and write a letter to the president about it, and be vocal about it. I think there are many Jewish voices now who would join our effort to get commutations for the remaining Holy Land incarcerated guys from the Holy Land Foundation. And I think there's probably a good deal more international support as well. One of the things that I ran into, I could not even hire a lobbying firm. All of them turned us down. They were scared to death to be, and thanks to the Muslim Legal Fund, we had the money. We were a good client. We were going to pay, and in spite of that, we were turned down because they were afraid. I think that's unlikely to be the case today, with 6 years having passed. So I think the conditions have changed. We need to make another attempt. And the object, in spite of everybody's discussion about what to do, this is one man's decision, the President of the United States. It's not anybody else's. It's all about him. So it's a question of focusing all of our efforts on having persuasive people and persuasive sources convince him that he should take these steps. I don't think in the course of doing this, if we start this campaign, we need to be the ones to be criticizing the Netanyahu government of Israel. It, of course, deserves condemnation because of what he's doing, but that case is being made by others. Yeah. So let's stick with what we're trying to accomplish, which is get these guys out of prison. Their behavior speaks for itself. We don't have to join in, and that makes it harder for Jewish groups to join us. Second, I don't think that we need to be revisiting all of the ins and outs of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. That also speaks for itself, and it's more and more on our side than it was 6 years ago. Let's focus on the plight of these people who, had they committed these crimes in Israel, would have been out of jail in Israel. Had they done the very same thing they've been accused of, which they didn't commit, but had they done the same thing that they've been accused of in Israel, they would have been out of jail 6 years ago. So that's my view.
Wow. Thank you.
Any other discussion about this?
But I have one thing here. The organization that I am involved with, Brooklyn for Peace, has signed on to the Within Our Lifetime campaign. And I've got two questions here. One would be, do we have a place for individuals to sign on? It seems like that could be helpful. And then the other is that are we going to focus on taking that next step to unite in a event? You know, people mentioned someone mentioned that church in Boston that gave an award, and it's the closest, I guess, to American mainstream organization to put something out like that. And could we get another organization? I will be trying to get my organization, Brooklyn for Peace, on board with something like that. And right now, I'm trying to get Jewish Voice for Peace to sign on to the Within Our Lifetime organization. So I think these grassroots efforts, if we can coordinate them, and just really focus on who's the next organization to try to get on board with this, would be helpful, and the individuals. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick?
Just a thought listening to all of this. Any human rights issue, certainly this one, at its fundamental core, is a human rights education issue. This has to, in my opinion, this has to put forth the idea of getting people to stop saying this dangerous phrase, I didn't know, or I don't know. This is a fundamental education issue. 15 years, we're coming up, as she says, 15 years. Now, that's a new generation of folks, a new generation of students, young people, many of whom either don't know of this case, even in this area, or in the surrounding area, and beyond. I think it's incumbent on us, I had it up on there before, but I think it's incumbent on us collectively to, one, make this a visible issue with just a chronology of events, a timeline, and put a human face to this. This is about human beings. So I do think there should be something, a fact sheet, for want of a better phrase. Maybe it does exist. If it doesn't, it needs to, and if it does, it needs to be circulated more broadly so everybody here is on the same page factually. We've mentioned this off and on, but there are, as you said, the anniversary of the sentencing is coming in May. All human rights events, any issue, but all human rights events can be tied to a calendar throughout the year, whether it's the sentencing in May, the November, these individuals' birthdays, they shouldn't pass unnoticed. These men have dates of birth. Their birthdays are happy things to commemorate. And if one is incarcerated, they still should not be forgotten. It's incumbent on us, in my opinion, to humanize this issue visually, and these men visually, and their families. It's not just the men who are incarcerated, it's their families. So I do think we need to get a fact sheet just to disseminate at gatherings, at rallies, to students, so people can stop saying, I didn't know, and to put a human face to this, and to tie events throughout the year on these calendar dates. That would be my suggestion.
That's a hope for the documentary.
But before we get to a documentary, this can be.
Beyond that, Brother Mofa, I'll just say to that point that I would like to dedicate an entire page to the Holy Land story with timeline and faces and stories. So I think the sisters in the room can help me design that if that already exists. I didn't know. I'm from Canada, Toronto, born and raised. I didn't know the situation until I got here, and I've been learning ever since. So I agree with that statement. That's why one of our pillars now at MLFA is not just defend, we protect, and we educate. Because there's absolutely a huge gap in people knowing or people even understanding the weight of these issues and their implications. So I'm committed to that. Like I said, you guys can help me design the page, the whole story. We wanted to connect right to the court, the actual documents in court, and really build this out. And that's why we started the documentary, or funded it last year, co-funded it, so that we can really go on the road, so to speak, with this story to change the narrative. I heard the letter, and I don't have all those points, but again, we have a blog, so I mean, we're here. I would be happy to, use our blog, use our platform to share that knowledge as well and tell the story.
Within Our Lifetime actually has a fact sheet online.
Who does?
Within Our Lifetime.
Within Our Lifetime,
Yes,
okay.
and,
So,
sorry, someone was gonna say.
oh, go ahead, Nida, sorry.
Yeah, actually Daniel has his, the little hand raised thingy. He's from Within Our
Yeah, I just
Lifetime.
wanted to jump in here. My name is Daniel, once again, from Within Our Lifetime. And as Thomas said, we launched a campaign a few months ago, shortly after the incident in prison that happened with Shukri, that Nida spoke about earlier in the meeting. And we launched that campaign, and since then we've gotten dozens and dozens of organizations to sign on to the campaign. We've made certain resources like fact sheets, a historical kind of timeline of the case and what happened afterwards, and kind of a political context to it. And we, launched a few activities after that. A town hall. We had some in-person events in New York. And I know that there were other events that were happening across the country last year as well. So, I think, a lot of the discussion that went on in the town hall last year is similar to the discussion that we're having today, right now. And I think a big thing that I keep thinking about whenever we have these kinds of events and meetings is it kind of almost seems like we're always starting at ground zero. And talking about restarting the campaign and everything. And I think, now we're at a point where, we have a lot more education to do, a lot more mobilizing to do, but we've created sort of networks across the country and internationally of organizations all over, the United States who are aware and who have endorsed the campaign. They have some sort of buy-in to supporting the imprisoned members of the HLF. So I think in terms of how we create a campaign, the infrastructure is largely there. And I think it really is just up to us to put it into action. Resources already exist. So I still think that people should make, all the pages on their individual websites, make more resources, make more things. But I think largely, I think a lot of the infrastructure is there. So where right now, I think what we can do is coordinate actions, because we have a lot of organizations who have already signed on to this campaign. So I think something that's people suggested in the town hall is coordinated days of action are incredibly productive, because if we can do something on a specific day in New York, and everyone else here in this room in Texas and all across the country can also do something on that day and reach out to press organizations, do protests, do teach-ins, do letter writing campaigns, all in the same time frame, a week of action, around the sentencing or around the imprisonment in November. I think that would all be incredibly productive. So, what I wanted to just, I'll link to in the chat the campaign page that we have and the list of organizations, which are in the dozens now. I don't remember exactly how many exist right now, but I think we should use the resources that already exist to push us to concretize what we're talking about into days or weeks of action, maybe in May or in November, because I think we can do it. And people in the town hall were speaking about other campaigns to liberate political prisoners in the past, and the Puerto Rican independence movement, the Black liberation movement, have already proved in practice that this is possible. It is possible for us to create such an outcry and such an worldwide demands, and these people are liberated. That people have proved this in practice, that it is possible. So I think we should use what we have already, create more resources, but just start coordinating events, start coordinating weeks or days of action. And I'm sure my organization and a lot of other organizations, PYM is on this call, San Madun, Political Prisoners Network, a lot of organizations, the Jericho movement, are already on board, and we just need to push people in the right direction and set days and weeks for us to start things to do.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm gonna read just one half a page from Shukri and then have a finish up discussion, okay? When we tried in 2016, we were trying on behalf of 5 defendants. Now we're down to 2, Hassan and myself. By the end of this administration, Mufid will have finished his 20-year sentence. That's next year. Mufid is gonna be out. So it's gonna be down to 2, Hassan and Shukri. It is not as heavy a lift to advocate for 2 as opposed to 5. It will actually be more helpful for Hassan and I that the 3 out of the original 5 have gone home. It will be easier to get the audience, quote, sympathy. It will also psychologically minimize the dark intensity around the case itself, making it feel less significant, less threatening. Not the hot potato it used to be 6 or 10 years ago, which Congressman Bryant just articulated. Hassan and I would have served more than 16 years in prison years, including good time, by the end of Biden administration. If we are able to get to the right set of ears, we might have a chance, bigger chance this time than we had in 2016. What you said, Nida, is music to my ears. Let's get the Palestinian Youth Movement and all these other grassroots type organizations on board, along with the major national organizations. And I'm gonna focus just on the Muslim and Palestinian organizations. I am certain that other non-Muslim organizations, as the work goes forward, will sign on and come forward. We have members of the Christian community here with us: Jay Haynes, Dr. David Haynes, Reverend Diane Baker, our chauffeur, Mr. Bob Baker, and that's supposed to be funny. You didn't laugh. And there are others. We have a network of churches that we work with, and I'm certain that as we move forward, we will get our brothers and sisters in the Christian faith to sign on to this just cause. Does anybody have any last things they would like to get off their chest, David?
I'd just like to see somebody collate or write up a report what we've done and schedule a follow-up meeting in, down the road, a month, 6 weeks, and see where we are.
Good. Let's schedule the next meeting. Y'all want to meet in a month, 2 weeks, 2 months,
A month.
1 month?
A month.
1 month.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that if we're meeting in a month, then we need to schedule like things in between. We need action items in between so that when we reconvene in a month, we actually have like updates and we're not, having conversations that we already had. Yeah, so if we can also, before we schedule the next meeting, identify next steps that we would like to have, like either accomplished or, like see some progress on prior to the next meeting, right? So a few things, I know folks mentioned the letters to the warden, right? That's something that we would like, that's more urgent, right? Something that we can do within our power now. So that's the next step, right? Begin brainstorming to how to get Amo Shukri from the prison. He's currently into a lower security prison, right?
Absolutely.
And then the second thing is the PR campaign. So we mentioned we already have within our lifetime that kick-started an amazing toolkit that we can build on. Now it takes all the folks who are interested in doing PR work to come together and meet from sometime between now and the next meeting we have and see what we're gonna do like tangibly, right? So those are two things that stick out to me. Are there any other action items? And then perhaps maybe the calendar thing, right? Identifying when are we gonna have events or when are important dates, right? And so establishing a calendar that we can all operate on moving forward. So these are next steps. We need folks to step in and take like leadership on like maybe I'll spearhead this alongside another person, and we can like convene between now and next meeting and get this stuff started. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I just want to say that when we started this campaign, 2016, there was probably 5 or 6 of us, and today we have almost a room full of people. So it's giving me a lot of hope. It's making me hopeful.
I do believe like pushing on social media is a very important thing because people need to see, people need to visualize this case. We can't just keep doing things behind the scenes. We need to bring it forward. And honestly, to be honest, if it wasn't for me contacting within our lifetime and PYM and SJP in October, no one online would know as much as they do right now because of everything that went viral. And that just proved that how powerful it can be if we just keep pushing online. Maybe if we keep pushing for people to circulate like a picture or something that says please bring Shukri down to medium or something like that. Like a viral internet campaign about that. If that's what our main goal is right now, then maybe we should have the campaign online circulate around that.
We can
So
do that.
Nida, how about we do this? why don't we assign like, folks from within our lifetime, I think we have Daniel on the call, is that right?
Yeah.
And then folks with the PYM, so we have Neshwa, Naveen, I think maybe even Nura on call, and folks from SJP to take on the PR campaign stuff.
Yeah.
And that just means that we'll coordinate the effort, not that we'll like be solely working on that. I know folks here have great ideas and we wanna work with everyone, but as almost an action item, we put that down for our very grassroots campaigns here. And of course, I know MLFA expressed interest. I think there's, we can bring those folks on board as well. So let's put that action item for within our lifetime, PYM, MLFA, and the folks who are interested. And I'll assign Daniel, if you have capacity, and maybe Neshwa and myself to really see this through over the next month. And then, so letters to the warden, I think somebody mentioned that we need to have talking points, right? Or maybe like a pre-made letter.
So Amit Gupta, the counselor, is gonna send me the email and I'll send it to you all.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Does anyone, so we'll leave that up to you, Brother
Yeah,
Hadi
yeah,
and Ahmed?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, yeah.
Create an email group.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
That's
is
something
the
that needs to be
best email
discussed,
group?
probably what platform to use and as far as the group. Nick,
Yeah.
you have any ideas? Anybody else have ideas? Nick is our tech guru.
I mean, like, as far as social media, I agree 100%, and I can help out with any, like, pushing on social media, and stuff like that. I think just, like, mainly having those, like, online campaigns that would, essentially move people, because if you don't move people, then there's no point in, doing it. So I agree, actually, with everything what she just said, because, the more actions that we have, both online and, like, in person, or, what's the word I'm looking for?
So what is the best Facebook for us to join together? I have never been on your Facebook, so is that where you want us to come together?
I personally don't get on Facebook as much, but Instagram is the new Facebook.
We do both.
But if I need to get on there for us to have a group, like to maybe like connect,
let's do that.
then we can do that. Yeah.
Do that.
Marwa, did you wanna say something?
I think these are all excellent points, and I like the idea that we're working short-term towards moving him to a lower security facility. I would also say for the longer-term plan, our ultimate goal is to get him out, right? So the only thing I've heard mentioned today is a presidential pardon. But there's also the two other options. They're all extremely difficult to reach, but you also have a potential successive habeas based on if there's new evidence, which is extremely difficult as well, but also the compassionate release motion, and I think one was filed, but I don't know the details of what happened. So there's, as far as I can see, 4 potential avenues for his release, which is the presidential pardon, a successive habeas, the motion for compassionate release, and the other one is, I don't know the details of Shukri Abu Bakr and Ghassan and Ashi's citizenship, but the whole point, I'm assuming, of getting him, they're citizens of the US, is the US trying to take that away from them upon release, or no? What was the whole offer of Turkish citizenship for then?
Well, if they release him, they will abandon the citizenship.
Okay, so the government's gonna go after their citizenship then. So then in that case, then there's potentially there is a prisoner treaty between the United States and Turkey where they do they do prisoner transfers to serve the remainder of their sentence in their home country, or in their country of nationality. Yeah, so those are your, off the top of my head, your 4 potential avenues for relief. Yeah.
Did any of the remaining HLF gentlemen file a habeas corpus?
I think they all filed it and got denied, and they've exhausted, as far as I can tell, they've exhausted it. The successive one would have to be based on new evidence that wasn't previously available. Like, for example, you identified that guy at trial or something. I don't know the details of the case, like something that was new.
I was wondering if, writing a letter to the warden is it effective? How would what the effective way to influence that decision? Because obviously, the warden, according to Shukri, with our meeting, they understand his right. They want him to move, but there's something above them that preventing this move. they are scared or they are hesitant, well, I don't know what it is. But what kind of campaign that will be effective, not just writing, we don't wanna write the thing and knowing that the, warden, he already in a level that if it was to him, tomorrow he will send Shukri, that's what he said.
Yeah.
He will send Shukri to the not medium, it's to the minimum. But something
furthermore,
stopping
Charlie
him
said-
from taking this step.
Go ahead.
Furthermore, I was just saying that Charlie said to me that the issue is more around the judge and so it's tied to the judge right now. And the last time when we filed, I think it was MLFA, it was Charlie that filed, during COVID and it was coming back to the judge. So there is something, I'm gonna follow up with him again after this conversation. I've already sent him a few messages. But it has to do with something at the judge level, not at the jail level, from what I understand.
That has nothing to do with that.
Maybe we need to run it by Charlie.
Next meeting, yeah, somebody, y'all wanna do that real quick?
Oh.
Next meeting? Next meeting, somebody have a calendar?
A month from now on a Saturday.
Saturday is good, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
After Ramadan.
After Ramadan, yeah. Ramadan starts
So
Wednesday?
Ramadan, yeah,
April
So the end of
22nd.
April.
we can do the
22nd,
29th.
after April
That's-
22nd.
Yeah, okay, so let's do Saturday, April 29th. Okay? That's like 5 weeks from now, concludes the end of Ramadan. And if we are all connected, I know folks put down their emails and numbers. So if we can figure out a way to get everybody either in a group, I know folks mentioned Facebook, there's also WhatsApp, there's different mediums that we can go.
I can promise to do email, that's about
Okay,
it.
yeah, so if we can just keep connected and just check in on like what we already described. And I think the things that Marwa mentioned right now are really, really valuable. Maybe next meeting, we should be very intentional to discuss like other legal avenues as well, while we update on campaign, while we update on these other things. Does that
Okay.
sound okay?
So we have plenty of legal folks involved with us, and you can direct your questions to them too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Marwa, I know.
I mean, John Klein was on the call, but I saw him drop off. I would be very interested in what he had to say since he knows the case.
Yeah, let's do that, I was gonna do that. Has anybody who's online not spoken yet and would like to offer a few words, please?
Does he have his hand up there?
All right, any other burning desires? Yes, sir.
Touching on what you had suggested, being able to connect cohesively is like paramount. Is there any type of like centralized authority or website that we can all just be directed to so we know who is doing what, when, how we can be involved, what is being done, just to be able to communicate without any breach, anything?
I think if we make a group chat, like whether it be on Facebook or
Totally.
WhatsApp, and we like regularly send updates, I think that'll be okay. Like maybe like a weekly update, somebody can check in and ask like what's
You can
going
make a
on.
WhatsApp?
Are folks comfortable with WhatsApp here? Does everyone have a WhatsApp? Okay, then let's
Yes,
go ahead with
WhatsApp.
that platform. And could the folks online drop their numbers if they're comfortable with that in the chat, and I can approach right now before the call ends and take a picture of the numbers?
Okay.
My sister has her hand raised, and she's trying to talk, but it won't unmute her.
So, Heather?
Yeah, it won't unmute her.
Nick, go on unmute, one speaker wants to speak.
Wait, can you keep that on the screen?
No one's been muted, so
Sorry.
No,
everyone.
no, you're good.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, how are you guys? I'm so sorry, I'm on a road trip, so if you can't hear me that well, I can barely hear anyone, but I
Tell
just
us, tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm Suhaira Nidat's sister, Shukri's daughter. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone that's online, and a special thank you to everyone that took time out of their Saturday to be here. You know, I'm sure your Saturdays are busy and you took time for this case, and it means a lot to us, more than you guys will ever know. I unfortunately wasn't able to hear everything, just due to being on the road. I did want to mention a few things, and I don't know if you guys already mentioned this, so I do apologize if I'm repeating anyone's thoughts or ideas, but, you know, we've, Nida and SJP and everybody has been working really hard and like, you know, with the documentary viewings and things like that. And the last couple times that Nida and I were sitting with the documentary viewings, you know, that's like a 2-part, 45-minute Al Jazeera documentary. Well, it was an amazing documentary. We realized a few things at the end every single time that, oh my gosh, it's super outdated. Yeah, unfortunately, nothing has changed. Like, we don't really have anything updated ever since the last thing that we saw on Al Jazeera. Nothing really has changed. And so whenever we do watch these, a lot of people are like, oh, so what happened with the park? Or, oh, what's this? And then Nida and I will unfortunately have to say like, oh, actually nothing has changed. And so I was thinking that maybe it would be a good idea, because for me, my goal, and I could be wrong, and you guys, you know, are entitled to your opinion, but in my head, my audience, I want the average Joe to care about the HLF. When the average Joe cares, I think that's when we'll get somewhere. And when I say the average Joe, I don't mean, you guys get what I'm trying to say. I want the average American to be like, wait a minute, who is Shukri Babakir? Who is Ghassan Ashif? What is the HLF about? When we kind of steer away from the political aspect of it and we focus on it being just a humanitarian issue, and with everything that's been going on in this country in the past 2 years, we're finally kind of getting there now where, well, the political climate is about standing up for rights and for like all minorities to stand up for one another and to kind of, you know, speak up. And so that's kind of a good thing, and it's a blessing in disguise. And I want us to take advantage on, you know, with the climate that's happening, the political climate in this country. But at the same time, I do feel like we're super behind in a lot of things, especially with social media. I know as family members, we do get caught up, and everyone else is getting caught up with the day-to-day, but I think what happens with the HLF, it's kind of like, if you don't hear about it, you don't see it, you kind of forget about it. And I think, at least from my dad's perspective, I truly think that he believes and he feels that people have forgotten about them, right? So even us, like as family members, we're lucky, we're not inside of a cell all the time. And so we get caught up in our day-to-day lives that we do forget them. And it doesn't mean that we're doing it intentionally, but I do think that we need to take advantage of everything that's going on in this country, whether it's political, I mean, everything. I mean, we even see how now finally people are talking about Palestine. A couple of years ago, that wasn't even happening, right? So people are actually a lot more courageous to talk about the truth now. So going back to the documentary, sorry, I'm all over the place, but about the documentary, if we could even just do like a 2-minute video, like an updated video about like, hey, this is what's going on, this is where we're at. Yeah, there's not much to tell you guys or update you, but like, for example, these 2 men are still like serving 65 years, Mufid, you know, the other 2 are out, Mufid will be out in a year, but just something updated that will catch the attention of everybody, or at least a few people. Another thing I wanted to mention is, it's not time to like, you know, point fingers at anyone, but I do know that there are so many influencers out there who are pro-Palestine, and I think they even just took a few minutes to kind of, or if we've reached out as family members, but we only have so much, we're so limited to our resources. But I mean, you could see a list of all the influencers that we've reached out to, and I'm talking about like non-Muslim influencers who, if they even gave us like, or honestly, if I should be honest, even some Muslim influencers who know about the HLF case, and if they take a minute or a second to even post something about the HLF, that's also an opportunity for exposure. And unfortunately, no one's really doing that. They will advocate for almost every other, you know, social, political issue that's going on. But when it comes to the HLF, I get it, it is super political, but if we kind of put a human face to the HLF story, I think we can get somewhere. And the fact that, you know, we've been doing this for 15 years, Hadi and everyone else, Diane, everybody, I can't really see who all is there, but I know you guys have been with us and Amina has, everyone that's been there with us from day one. I appreciate it, and I appreciate our newcomers. It's just a perspective from a family member, and it's just kind of a few points that we've been taking here and there that we've noticed. And honestly, my goal is, again, to get the attention of the average Joe and to really utilize social media, because honestly, like, I really think that's what's gonna get our dads out, honestly, not writing. With all due respect, I don't think writing letters is gonna make a difference anymore. I think that we need to be, you know, utilize the social media. I mean, it's done so much for so many people all around the world, and I think people are forgetting that, like, we're in 2023, we're still dealing with history is repeating itself, whether it's with, racism or whatever it may be, we're still kind of in the same spot. And that's what I mean about when we watch these documentaries. And honestly, I do feel bad for people coming and showing up and sitting for 2 45-minute part documentary. It was amazing and it was great while it could be, but at this point it's just super outdated. And at the same time, unfortunately, we don't really have good news for people. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that made any sense,